I'm Dr. Ivy Edwards, and I've never been this desperate to escape my own life. The emergency room at Chicago General had been hell for 3 straight months, and my relationship with David crashed harder than the heart monitors I listened to daily. So here I am, boarding a Greyhound bus to Yellowstone in the middle of January, like some kind of masochist who thinks freezing her butt off in Wyoming will solve everything. The bus smells like stale coffee and broken dreams. I slide into a window seat, grateful nobody's sitting next to me yet. My medical bag sits in my lap like a security blanket. Pathetic, really. Even on vacation, I can't let go. Chicago General? The voice makes me look up. Standing in the aisle is this blonde woman with the most incredible blue eyes I've ever seen. She's holding a duffel bag and pointing at my hospital ID badge, which I forgot to take off. Great first impression, Ivy. Guilty as charged. I manage what I hope passes for a smile. You in the medical field too? She settles into the seat across from me, and I notice her own badge. Quinn Smith, Pediatric Nursing, Children's Memorial. Small world. Quinn's smile is genuine, warm. I'm Quinn. And let me guess, solo trip to forget the world exists? You read minds too, or is that just a nursing thing? Lucky guess. Though usually it's the doctors who look like they haven't slept in weeks. Damn, she's got me pegged already. I catch myself staring at the way her blonde hair catches the overhead light, how her scrubs somehow look better on her than they have any right to. So what drives a pediatric nurse to Yellowstone in winter? I ask, genuinely curious. Same thing that drives an ER doctor, I'd guess. Sometimes you need to remember what quiet sounds like. The bus lurches forward, and Chicago starts disappearing behind us. Quinn pulls out a thermos and offers me some coffee. It's actually good coffee. Not the hospital swill I'm used to. You know, she says after we've been driving for an hour, I brought way too much trail mix for one person. 3 hours later, we're planning to hike the same trails. It wasn't planned, just happened naturally. Quinn talks about her patients with this light in her eyes that makes me remember why I became a doctor in the first place. She actually listens when I tell her about the chaos of the ER. Doesn't just nod and change the subject like most people do. At our rest stop in Iowa, we end up at the same diner counter. Quinn orders pie for breakfast, and suddenly that seems like the most reasonable thing in the world. Life's too short for sensible breakfast choices, she says, catching me watching her eat apple pie with obvious pleasure. Is that your nursing philosophy? That's my everything philosophy. Though, don't tell my supervisor I said that. I find myself laughing for the first time in months. Really laughing. Not that polite chuckle I use with colleagues. Quinn has this way of talking that makes everything seem lighter, possible. You know what, I say, making a decision that surprises even me? Want to explore Yellowstone together? I mean, safety in numbers and all that. Quinn's smile could power the whole damn bus. I thought you'd never ask, Dr. Edwards. The way she says my name makes something flutter in my chest that has nothing to do with caffeine. This trip just got a lot more interesting than I planned. 2 days into our Yellowstone adventure, the weather forecast proved to be complete bullshit. What started as light snow turned into a full-blown blizzard that caught Quinn and me 3 miles from the main trail. The wind whipped snow around us like nature's own personal hell, and visibility dropped to maybe 10 feet. There! Quinn shouted over the howling wind, pointing through the white chaos. Is that a cabin? I squinted where she was pointing. Through the swirling snow, I could make out the dark outline of what looked like a ranger station or emergency shelter. Thank goodness for Quinn's sharp eyes. We stumbled through knee-deep snow, clutching each other for support. By the time we reached the cabin door, we were both shivering uncontrollably. The place was unlocked, standard protocol for emergency shelters. Inside, it was basic but warm, with a stone fireplace and enough wood to last the night. Well, I said, brushing snow off my jacket. This wasn't exactly in the brochure. Quinn was already examining the fireplace. Lucky for us, I actually know how to build a proper fire. Summer camp wasn't totally useless after all. Within an hour, she had a roaring fire going while I inventoried our supplies. We had enough food and water for the night, assuming the storm cleared by morning. The cabin was cozy, furnished with a single bed and an old couch that had seen better decades. So much for our planned itinerary, I said, settling beside her on the couch facing the fire. Are you kidding? This is way better than following some tourist trail. Quinn pulled off her wet boots and stretched her feet toward the warmth. When's the last time you did something completely unplanned? I had to think about that. Really think. Honestly, maybe never. I've been scheduling my life down to 15-minute increments since medical school. That sounds exhausting. It is. The admission surprised me. I never talked about being tired, not even to myself most days. What about you? You seem like someone who embraces chaos. Quinn laughed, this genuine sound that filled the small cabin. My last relationship ended because I was apparently too spontaneous. Sarah said I made her nervous, always wanting to try new things or change plans. Sarah sounds like she missed out. Yeah, well, turns out dating women is complicated no matter what. Quinn's cheeks flushed pink, and not just from the fire. Sorry, I shouldn't assume you'd understand. My heart started beating faster. Actually, I understand perfectly. David and I broke up partly because he couldn't handle that I wasn't interested in the whole suburban wife fantasy he had mapped out. The air between us shifted, charged with something I hadn't felt in years. Quinn turned to face me fully, her blue eyes reflecting the firelight. So we're both refugees from straight expectations? Looks that way. The wind outside rattled the windows, but inside the cabin felt like our own little world. Quinn moved closer on the couch, ostensibly to share warmth, but I could feel the electricity between us intensifying. Ivy, she said softly, can I tell you something? I noticed you the moment you got on that bus. Not just because of the medical badge. What then? You have this way of carrying yourself, like you're ready for anything but hoping for something better. Before I could overthink it, I reached up and touched her face. Her skin was warm from the fire, soft under my fingertips. Quinn, I haven't felt this way about anyone in longer than I care to admit. She leaned into my touch, then slowly brought her lips to mine. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, then deeper as we both stopped pretending this was just about sharing warmth. Her lips were soft and tasted like the hot chocolate we'd shared earlier. When we broke apart, I was breathless. I can't believe I'm doing this. Kissing a relative stranger in a cabin during a blizzard. Quinn's smile was mischievous. Maybe spontaneity suits you after all. We spent the rest of the night talking by the fire, sharing stories about our families, our work, our dreams we'd almost forgotten we had. As dawn broke through the windows and the storm finally cleared, I realized something had fundamentally shifted. This wasn't just a vacation anymore. The flight back to Chicago felt like returning from a different planet. Quinn and I had exchanged numbers, made vague promises to stay in touch, but sitting in O'Hare Airport saying goodbye, I wondered if what happened in that cabin would just become a beautiful vacation memory. 3 days back at Chicago General, and I couldn't concentrate on anything. Mrs. Patterson came into the ER with chest pain, and instead of my usual laser focus, I kept thinking about Quinn's laugh. During my break, I found myself Googling Children's Memorial Hospital, looking up the pediatric wing like some kind of stalker. Dr. Edwards, you're needed in trauma too, my nurse called out, snapping me back to reality. But even while stitching up a construction worker's lacerated arm, my mind kept drifting to blue eyes and blonde hair. On Thursday, I finally gave in to the impulse that had been building all week. I took the elevator to the pediatric floor at Children's Memorial, telling myself I just wanted to grab coffee from their better cafeteria. Complete lie, but whatever. I spotted Quinn immediately. She was kneeling next to a little girl's wheelchair, making silly faces that had the kid giggling uncontrollably. Watching her work, seeing how naturally she connected with her patients, made my chest tight with something I wasn't ready to name yet. Dr. Edwards? Quinn looked up, surprise and pleasure mixing in her expression. What brings you to our neck of the woods? Coffee run, I lied smoothly. Heard yours was better than ours. Definitely true. Want a tour guide? 20 minutes later, we were sitting in the hospital cafeteria, ostensibly drinking coffee but mostly just smiling at each other like idiots. I've been thinking about you, Quinn said, her directness catching me off guard. About that night in the cabin. Good thoughts, I hope? The best. She reached across the table, fingers brushing mine. Would you like to have dinner? Somewhere that's not a hospital cafeteria or an emergency shelter? I'd like that very much. We settled on Romano's, this little Italian place in Lincoln Park that Quinn swore made the best carbonara in Chicago. I spent an embarrassing amount of time choosing what to wear, finally settling on the black dress that made me feel confident without trying too hard. Quinn was waiting outside the restaurant when I arrived, looking stunning in dark jeans and a green sweater that made her eyes impossibly blue. Seeing her outside of scrubs and snow gear, I realized how beautiful she really was. "You look incredible," she said, and the way she looked at me made my cheeks warm. Dinner was perfect. We talked about everything and nothing, the conversation flowing as easily as it had in Yellowstone. Quinn told me about growing up in Michigan, how she'd always wanted to work with kids. I found myself opening up about medical school, the pressure, the loneliness I'd never admitted to anyone. "You know what I love about emergency medicine?" Quinn asked over dessert. "What?" "Every day, you get to be someone's hero, even if they never remember your name." "And pediatrics?" "Every day, I get to remind a kid that the world can still be magical, even when they're scared or hurt." Walking through Lincoln Park after dinner, snow crunching under our feet, I felt more relaxed than I had in months. The city lights reflected off the snow, creating this winter wonderland right in downtown Chicago. "Ivy," Quinn said, stopping under a street lamp that cast golden light around us. "I need to tell you something." My heart started racing. "What?" "I haven't felt this way about anyone in a long time, maybe ever." She stepped closer, close enough that I could see snowflakes caught in her eyelashes. "And it's terrifying and wonderful, and I can't stop thinking about what it might mean." I reached up, cupping her face in my gloved hands. "I know exactly what you mean." This time, when we kissed, there was no hesitation. Her lips were cold from the winter air but warmed quickly under mine. The kiss deepened, and I felt something inside me that had been locked away for years finally breaking free. When we broke apart, both breathing hard, the snow was falling heavier around us. "Come back to my place?" I whispered against her lips. "I thought you'd never ask." The walk to my apartment building felt both endless and too short. My hands were shaking as I fumbled with my keys, and not from the cold. Quinn waited patiently, her hand on my lower back, steady and reassuring. This was really happening. And for the first time in years, I wasn't overthinking it. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of stolen moments and late-night phone calls. Quinn and I fell into an easy rhythm, meeting for coffee between our shifts, texting throughout our busy days. I hadn't felt this connected to anyone in years, maybe ever. Everything was perfect until I logged into my bank account on a Tuesday morning and nearly dropped my laptop. $500,000. Just sitting there in my checking account like it belonged there. I stared at the screen for a full minute, convinced I was hallucinating from too much caffeine and too little sleep. I refreshed the page 3 times. The number didn't change. My hands started shaking as I scrolled through recent transactions, looking for some explanation. Nothing. Just a deposit labeled wire transfer with yesterday's date. "What the hell?" I whispered to my empty apartment. My first thought was bank error, but Chicago First National doesn't just misplace $500,000. My second thought was somehow worse. What if this was dirty money? What if someone was using my account for money laundering? As an ER doctor, I'd seen enough crime shows during downtime to know this kind of thing could destroy my career. I grabbed my phone and called Quinn before I could think twice. "Hey, beautiful." Her voice was warm, probably between patients. "Miss me already?" "Quinn, I need you to come over. Now. Something's wrong." The warmth disappeared from her voice immediately. "What happened? Are you hurt?" "Not hurt, but there's something seriously weird going on with my bank account. Can you get away?" "I'm off in an hour. I'll be right there." An hour felt like a year. I paced my apartment, pulled up every financial document I could find, called the bank's customer service line twice, only to be put on hold for eternity. By the time Quinn knocked on my door, I was bordering on full panic. She took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug. "Whatever it is, we'll figure it out. Look at this." I pulled her to my laptop, pointing at the screen that had been haunting me all morning. Quinn's eyes went wide. "Holy shit, Ivy. Where did that come from?" "That's exactly what I've been trying to figure out." I collapsed onto my couch, running hands through my hair. "Quinn, what if this is illegal money? What if someone's using my account for something terrible? I could lose my medical license." She sat beside me, her hand finding mine. "Okay, let's think about this logically. Have you called the bank?" 3 times. They keep putting me on hold or transferring me to different departments. Nobody seems to know anything. "What about family? Any relatives who might have left you money?" My parents died in a car accident when I was in medical school. No siblings. My only aunt was Aunt Margaret, but she died 2 years ago and left everything to charity. I paused, something nagging at the back of my mind. Although the estate did take forever to settle, there were some legal complications with her will. Quinn squeezed my hand. That could be it. Estate settlements can take years, especially if there were disputes. But wouldn't someone have contacted me? Wouldn't there have been paperwork? Not necessarily. Sometimes lawyers just handle everything and wire money directly. We spent the next 4 hours on the phone with banks, lawyers, and estate offices. Quinn stayed right beside me through every frustrating conversation, taking notes, asking smart questions I was too panicked to think of. Having her there kept me grounded when I wanted to spiral into worst-case scenarios. By evening, we'd gotten nowhere concrete, but the bank assured us the money was legally deposited and not flagged for suspicious activity. That helped, but didn't solve the mystery. "I'm ordering pizza," Quinn announced when we finally gave up for the day. "You haven't eaten anything since breakfast." "I'm not really hungry." Tough. "You're still a doctor, which means you know you need fuel to function." She was right, of course. While we waited for delivery, Quinn made tea and settled beside me on the couch. The warmth of her body against mine was the first thing that had felt normal all day. "Thank you," I said quietly, "for dropping everything and coming here, for staying. Where else would I be?" She turned to face me, tucking her legs under her. "Ivy, we're together in this. Whatever this money situation is, we'll figure it out, but I'm not going anywhere." The certainty in her voice, the way she said "we" like it was the most natural thing in the world, made something tight in my chest finally start to relax. "I've never had someone react that way before," I admitted. David would have lectured me about being more careful with my finances. David sounds like he was an ass. He was. But you're not. Quinn smiled, leaning closer. "No, I'm definitely not David." When she kissed me, soft and reassuring, I felt some of the day's panic finally start to fade. Whatever this money mystery was, we'd figure it out together. While we waited for the bank investigation to crawl forward, Quinn and I decided not to let the money mystery derail what was happening between us. If anything, the crisis had shown me how much I'd come to rely on her steady presence in my life. "You know what we need," Quinn said the following Saturday morning, sprawled across my bed in one of my old medical school t-shirts. "A real date. Somewhere that doesn't involve hospital cafeterias or financial panic." "What did you have in mind?" "The winter festival at Navy Pier. Ice sculptures, overpriced hot chocolate, tourists everywhere. Completely frivolous and perfect." I loved how Quinn could find joy in the simplest things. 3 hours later, we were wandering through the festival, her hand warm in mine as we navigated the crowds. She stopped at every ice sculpture, taking pictures with her phone like she was documenting some grand adventure. "Look at this one," she said, pulling me toward a sculpture of 2 dolphins leaping through frozen waves. "Isn't it amazing how someone can turn plain ice into something so beautiful? Kind of like what you do with sick kids. Take something scary and make it magical." Quinn turned to look at me, her cheeks pink from the cold air. "And what you do with trauma patients. Take chaos and create order." "We make a good team." "Yeah, we do." She kissed me right there in front of the dolphins, not caring about the families walking past or the teenagers giggling nearby. Her lips were cold but soft, and when she pulled away, I felt like I was glowing from the inside out. 2 weeks later, we had our first semi-public appearance as a couple at the annual Chicago Medical Conference. I'd been dreading it, anticipating awkward questions about my personal life. But Quinn made everything easier just by being herself. "Dr. Edwards, good to see you." Dr. Hendricks from cardiology approached during the cocktail hour. "And who's your lovely companion?" "This is Quinn Smith, pediatric nursing at Children's Memorial," I said, surprised by how natural it felt to introduce her. "Pleasure to meet you," Quinn said, shaking his hand with confidence. "Dr. Edwards was just telling me about your innovative cardiac catheter techniques." I hadn't been, but watching Quinn effortlessly navigate the conversation, asking intelligent questions that made Dr. Hendricks beam with professional pride, I fell a little harder. She had this gift for making people feel important, valued. "She's impressive," Dr. Hendricks told me later when Quinn had stepped away to get drinks. "You'd better hold on to that one." "Planning on it," I said, meaning it completely. The conference ended with dancing, something I normally avoided like the plague. but Quinn led me onto the floor during a slow song, her hand on my waist, moving with an easy grace that made me forget we had an audience. "You're quite the dancer, Nurse Smith." "You're not so bad yourself, Dr. Edwards, though you're holding back." "I don't dance in public. Too many people watching." "Let them watch." Quinn spun me slowly, bringing me back closer than before. "I want everyone to know you're with me." The simple declaration sent warmth shooting through me. When the song ended, she kissed me softly, right there on the dance floor. A few colleagues smiled our way, some looked surprised, but nobody seemed scandalized. Maybe Chicago was more progressive than I'd given it credit for. That night, back at my apartment, Quinn and I opened a bottle of wine to celebrate surviving our first official public appearance. We were both giddy from the evening, from the sense that we'd crossed some invisible line into being a real couple. "I have a confession," Quinn said, curled against me on the couch. "I may have Googled you before our first dinner." "You did not." "Did too. Wanted to make sure you weren't some secret serial killer who preys on nurses." "And what did you find?" "Published papers on emergency trauma techniques. A few quotes in medical journals." "Very impressive, very serious, Dr. Ivy Edwards." "Disappointed?" Quinn set down her wine glass and turned to face me fully. "The opposite. I found the serious, accomplished doctor incredibly attractive. But getting to know the woman behind all that, the one who laughs at my terrible jokes and builds perfect fires and kisses me like I'm the only person in the world, that's what made me fall for you." "You've fallen for me?" "Completely. Utterly. Probably embarrassingly so." I set my own glass down, my heart racing. "Good. Because I've fallen for you too." This time, when Quinn kissed me, it was different. Deeper, more urgent, full of promise. Her hands found the hem of my sweater, and I didn't hesitate before helping her pull it over my head. What followed was slow and perfect, and everything I hadn't known I was missing. Quinn took her time, learned what made me gasp, what made me arch against her. When she whispered my name against my skin, it sounded like a prayer. Later, wrapped in each other's arms, the city lights filtering through my bedroom windows, I felt more complete than I had in years. "Stay tonight," I whispered against her hair. "I was hoping you'd ask." Things were going perfectly until Dr. Marcus Perry decided to become Chicago General's unofficial financial detective. I'd known Marcus for 3 years, worked alongside him through countless emergencies, but I'd never noticed how observant he was about things that weren't medical crises. "Ivy, got a minute?" Marcus cornered me by the coffee machine during Tuesday's shift change. His tone was casual, but something in his eyes made my stomach clench. "Sure. What's up?" "Heard through the grapevine you've been house hunting in Lincoln Park. Nice neighborhood, expensive though." I hadn't been house hunting anywhere, but Marcus clearly thought he knew something. "Just browsing online. You know how it is. Must be nice having family money to fall back on." Emergency medicine doesn't exactly pay Lincoln Park prices. The comment hit like ice water. Marcus was fishing, but he was getting uncomfortably close to something he shouldn't know about. I kept my expression neutral. Years of medical training coming in handy for more than patient care. "No family money here, just good financial planning." "Right, of course." Marcus smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Well, if you need any investment advice, my brother works in wealth management. Great for people who suddenly come into money." After he walked away, I stood there holding my coffee cup with shaking hands. How did Marcus know anything about my financial situation? Had someone at the bank talked? Was this the beginning of an investigation that could destroy my career? I called Quinn immediately. "He's fishing," she said after I explained the conversation, "but that doesn't mean he knows anything concrete." "Quinn, what if he reports this to administration? What if they think I'm involved in something illegal? Then we prove you're not. The bank investigation will clear things up soon." But Quinn's voice carried a tension I hadn't heard before. When we met for dinner that evening, she seemed distracted, checking her phone more than usual. "Everything okay?" I asked over pasta at our usual place. "Actually, no." Quinn set down her fork, looking uncomfortable. "My mom called today. She's coming to visit next week." "That's good, right? You miss your family." "It's complicated." Quinn's laugh was hollow. I may have been less than completely honest about certain aspects of my life when I talked to her. My stomach dropped. How less than completely honest? She thinks I'm dating a nice man named Quinn. Well, technically I never said Quinn was a man, but I never corrected her assumption either. The restaurant suddenly felt too warm. So your family doesn't know you're gay? My family doesn't know a lot of things about me. They're very traditional, very conservative. My dad still asks when I'm going to find a good husband and give him grandchildren. I stared at Quinn, this woman I'd fallen completely for, realizing there were entire parts of her life I knew nothing about. What does this mean for us? I don't know. Quinn's honesty was devastating. I want to tell them about you, about us. But Ivy, they might cut me off completely. Not just financially, emotionally too. And with everything uncertain right now, with your money situation. You think I'm a liability? No, that's not what I'm saying. But her hesitation said everything. Quinn was afraid to introduce me to her family, and the money mystery hanging over my head gave her the perfect excuse. The rest of dinner was strained. We tried to talk about other things, but the elephant in the room kept growing larger. When Quinn walked me home, our usual easy conversation felt forced. I need some time to think, she said outside my building. About us? About everything. This is all happening so fast, and I don't want to make decisions that hurt you or hurt my family. I watched Quinn walk away, her shoulders tense under her winter coat. For the first time since Yellowstone, I felt truly alone. The next morning brought worse news. The bank called to inform me that their investigation was expanding. Apparently, the wire transfer had originated from an account flagged for suspicious activity 2 years ago. Nothing concrete, just enough to make everyone nervous. We're not suggesting any wrongdoing on your part, the bank investigator assured me. But we'll need to freeze the account pending further review. Great. So now I couldn't access money that might not even be mine? My relationship was falling apart, and my colleague was asking questions that could torpedo my career. When my phone buzzed with a text from Quinn that evening, my heart jumped. Can we talk tonight? I've been thinking. She came over looking exhausted, like she hadn't slept since our dinner. I'm sorry about last night, she said immediately. I handled that terribly. Which part? The family secret or questioning whether we should be together? All of it. Quinn sat beside me, but didn't reach for my hand like usual. Ivy, I care about you. More than I've cared about anyone, but I'm scared. Of what? Of losing my family. Of this money thing destroying both our careers. Of moving too fast and ruining something that could be amazing. I looked at Quinn, at this woman who'd become the center of my world in just a few weeks, and realized we were at a crossroads. So what do you want to do? I don't know. Maybe we should slow down until things settle. The words hit like a physical blow, but I kept my voice steady. Slow down how exactly? Maybe see each other less. Give me time to figure out the family situation. And if you decide your family's approval matters more than this? Quinn's silence was answer enough. 5 days of Quinn's version of slowing down felt like torture. We went from talking multiple times a day to awkward text exchanges about work schedules. I threw myself into double shifts at the hospital. But even trauma cases couldn't distract me from the Quinn-shaped hole in my life. Then Margaret Hoffman called. Dr. Edwards? This is Margaret Hoffman from Hoffman, Banks & Associates. We represent your late Aunt Margaret Edwards' estate. I nearly dropped the phone. My aunt's estate was settled 2 years ago. I'm afraid there was a significant error in our records. Your aunt left you a substantial inheritance that was incorrectly allocated to charity due to a clerical mistake. We've been trying to reach you for weeks. How substantial are we talking? $500,000, plus accumulated interest. The funds were transferred to your account last month as soon as we discovered the error. I sank into my kitchen chair, relief flooding through me so fast I felt dizzy. So the money is legally mine? Completely legitimate. I'm sending over all the documentation today. Again, I apologize for the confusion and delay. After hanging up, I just sat there staring at my phone. The money mystery was solved. Aunt Margaret, who I'd barely known but who apparently remembered me in her will, had left me enough money to change my life. No investigation, no career destruction, just a bureaucratic screw-up finally corrected. I called Quinn immediately. The money's from my aunt's estate, I said as soon as she picked up. It's legal, it's mine, everything's fine. Silence on the other end. Quinn? Did you hear me? I heard you. That's wonderful, Ivy. I'm happy for you. but her voice was flat, distant. "Can you come over? I want to celebrate with you. I'm actually with my parents tonight. They flew in early." Of course they did. "Quinn, this changes things. The money situation that was making you nervous, it's resolved. It's not just about the money." The honesty in her voice cut deep. We both knew the money had been an excuse, a convenient reason to put distance between us when things got intense. "Then, what is it about?" "I need to go. My mom's asking questions." She hung up before I could respond. I spent that evening alternating between fury and heartbreak. The responsible part of me wanted to give Quinn space to figure out her family situation. The part that had fallen completely in love with her wanted to fight for what we had. 2 days later, she showed up at my apartment unexpectedly, looking like she'd been crying. "My parents left this morning," she said when I opened the door. "How did it go?" "Terrible. They spent 3 days asking about my dating life, when I'm going to settle down with a nice man, whether I'm happy being just a nurse instead of becoming a doctor." I let her in, noting how she avoided eye contact. "Did you tell them about us?" "No." The word was barely a whisper. "I tried, Ivy. I really tried. But they were already disappointed that I'm 29 and single. Adding that I'm gay would have destroyed them." "And what about destroying us?" Quinn finally looked at me, her blue eyes bright with unshed tears. "I've been miserable without you. Every day felt wrong. I miss talking to you, laughing with you, just being in the same room as you." "But?" "There is no but. I was scared and stupid and I made the wrong choice." Quinn stepped closer. "Ivy, I don't want to slow down. I want to speed up. I want to be with you completely, openly, regardless of what my family thinks." What changed? Spending 3 days pretending to be someone I'm not reminded me how exhausting it is to live a lie, and realizing that I'd rather have you and lose them than have them and lose you. I searched her face, looking for uncertainty, for the hesitation that had been there before. Instead, I saw determination and something that looked like love. "Are you sure? Because I can't do this emotional whiplash again, Quinn. Either you want this or you don't." "I want this. I want you. I want everything." She kissed me before I could respond, desperate and fierce and full of promise. When we broke apart, both breathing hard, I saw the woman who'd fallen for me in that cabin, not the scared person who'd been pulling away. "I have something to show you," I said, pulling up the estate documents on my laptop. "Official proof that I'm not a criminal mastermind." Quinn read through everything, her attorney brain processing the legal language. "So you're officially wealthy now. How does it feel?" "Weird. Like I should be different somehow, but I'm still just me." "Good. I fell for just you, not you plus a bank account." That night, we made love like we were making up for lost time, relearning each other's bodies, whispering apologies and promises against sweat-slicked skin. When Quinn cried out my name, her back arching beneath me, I felt like I'd found my way home again. Later, wrapped in my sheets with Quinn's head on my shoulder, I floated an idea that had been growing in my mind since the morning's phone call. "What would you think about opening a clinic together?" "What kind of clinic?" "Community health. Free care for people who can't afford it. Emergency medicine expertise combined with pediatric care." Quinn lifted her head to look at me. "Using your inheritance?" "Why not? It's enough to get started, and we could apply for grants to sustain it." "You'd want to do that? Give up your position at Chicago General?" "For the right partner, yes." Quinn's smile was radiant. "Dr. Edwards, I think you just asked me to go into business with you. Among other things." "What other things?" I brushed a strand of blonde hair from her face. "I think I'm falling in love with you, Quinn Smith." "I think I fell in love with you weeks ago, Ivy Edwards." When she kissed me this time, it tasted like new beginnings. 3 months later, our clinic project had transformed from pillow talk into serious business planning. Quinn and I spent every free moment researching locations, developing business plans, and navigating the bureaucratic nightmare of medical licensing for community health centers. "This building has everything we need," Quinn said, pulling up photos on her laptop during our Saturday morning planning session. "Enough space for 6 exam rooms, a small lab, and administrative offices." The property was in Humboldt Park, a neighborhood that desperately needed accessible health care. The building was a former insurance office, nothing fancy, but it had good bones and was within our budget. The seller's motivated, Quinn continued. Lost his lease somewhere else and needs to close quickly. I studied the financial projections we'd been working on for weeks. The inheritance would cover the down payment, renovations, and first year of operations. After that, we'd need grants and sliding scale fees to sustain us, but it was doable. Let's make an offer. Quinn's smile was brilliant. Really? You're sure about this? I've never been more sure about anything. The truth was, somewhere between planning exam room layouts and researching grant opportunities, this had become about more than just opening a clinic. Quinn and I worked together like we'd been partners for years, our skills complementing each other perfectly. She handled the community outreach and pediatric protocols, while I focused on emergency care procedures and medical equipment. Our personal life had found its rhythm too. Quinn had officially moved into my apartment the month before, though most of her stuff had been migrating over gradually for weeks. Waking up next to her every morning, sharing coffee and terrible morning hair, felt like the most natural thing in the world. But nothing had prepared me for the phone call that came Tuesday evening, while we were assembling IKEA furniture for the clinic. Quinn, it's for you, I said, handing her my phone. Seattle Children's Hospital? Quinn's face went pale as she listened to whoever was on the other end. I watched her expression shift from confusion to excitement, to something that looked like panic. Thank you for considering me. Can I have a few days to think about it? After she hung up, Quinn stared at my phone like it might explode. What was that about? They offered me the head pediatric nursing position. It's the job I applied for 6 months ago, before we met. My stomach dropped. In Seattle? In Seattle. It's an incredible opportunity, Ivy. Running the entire pediatric nursing program at one of the best children's hospitals in the country. I forced myself to smile. That's amazing. You must be thrilled. I'm confused as hell, Quinn said, sinking onto the couch next to our half-assembled filing cabinet. 6 months ago, this would have been my dream job. But now? Now I can't imagine leaving you. Leaving this. She gestured at the scattered furniture parts, the clinic brochures covering my coffee table, the life we'd been building together. You have to at least consider it, I said, though the words felt like swallowing glass. This is your career we're talking about. What about our clinic? What about everything we've planned? I can find another partner, or run it solo for emergency care only. Quinn looked at me like I'd grown a second head. You want me to take the job? I want you to be happy. And I want you to make decisions based on what's right for you, not just what's convenient for us. What if what's right for me is staying here with you? Then you stay. But Quinn, you need to be absolutely certain, because if you give up this opportunity and regret it later, it'll poison everything between us. We spent the rest of the evening in careful politeness, both avoiding the elephant that had taken up residence in my living room. Quinn researched Seattle Children's Hospital while I pretended to read medical journals. When we went to bed, we lay on opposite sides, not quite touching. The next few days were torture. Quinn flew to Seattle for interviews and a facility tour, leaving me to rattle around my apartment missing her and trying not to imagine her falling in love with the Pacific Northwest. She called every night, but our conversations were strained. Quinn would tell me about the hospital, the position, how impressed everyone was with her qualifications. I'd update her on clinic preparations and try to sound supportive while my heart slowly broke. When Quinn came back Thursday evening, she looked exhausted but determined. We need to talk, she said before she'd even taken off her coat. I braced myself. How was Seattle? Beautiful. The hospital is incredible. The position would let me develop new protocols, work with cutting-edge pediatric technology, make a real impact on children's healthcare. Sounds perfect for you. It would be, if I wanted it. I looked up from the medical supply catalog I'd been pretending to read. Do you? Quinn sat beside me, taking my hands in hers. Ivy, I spent 3 days in Seattle imagining what my life would look like there. Nice apartment, challenging work, professional recognition, everything I thought I wanted. And every night I called you and realized I was just counting hours until I could come home. Home to you, to this apartment, to our insane clinic plans, and your terrible morning hair, and the way you laugh at my dumb jokes. Relief flooded through me so fast I felt dizzy. So, you're staying? I'm staying. I'm choosing us. This life we're building together. The clinic, the relationship, all of it. Quinn leaned forward, kissing me softly. Besides, someone has to keep you from buying the most expensive medical equipment just because it's shiny. I do not do that. You absolutely do that. Good thing I love you anyway. Later that night, tangled in sheets and each other, Quinn traced patterns on my bare shoulder. No regrets? I asked quietly. Only that it took me so long to realize what I really wanted. Which is a life I built myself, with someone who challenges me and supports me, and makes me want to be better. Professional success is great, but this is everything. I pulled her closer, breathing in the scent of her hair. I love you, Quinn Smith. I love you too, Dr. Edwards. Now let's build something amazing together. 6 months later, the Edwards Smith Community Health Center officially opened its doors on Humboldt Park Avenue. Quinn and I had spent the summer transforming the old insurance office into something that actually looked like a medical facility. The walls were painted cheerful yellow instead of institutional beige, and Quinn had insisted on a children's reading corner with books in Spanish and English. Dr. Edwards, your first patient is ready in exam room 2, Quinn called out, grinning as she used my professional title. She looked incredible in her new scrubs, personalized with Q Smith, head nurse embroidered on the pocket. Our first day was chaotic perfection. We saw everything from routine checkups to a construction worker with a dislocated shoulder, exactly the mix of primary care and emergency medicine we'd planned for. Quinn moved between rooms with easy efficiency, switching from English to Spanish with families who needed it, making scared children laugh while she took their vital signs. By closing time, we'd seen 32 patients. Not bad for a brand new clinic in a neighborhood where people were still learning to trust us. I can't believe we actually did this, Quinn said as we locked up that evening. We built something real. We built something that matters. The clinic became our third partner in the relationship. Quinn and I developed a rhythm that worked both professionally and personally. She handled all the pediatric cases and most of the Spanish-speaking families, while I took trauma cases and complex diagnoses. When we disagreed about patient care, we debated it professionally, never letting personal emotions interfere with medical decisions. At home, we decompress over dinner, sharing stories about the day's cases, celebrating small victories like finally convincing Mrs. Rodriguez to manage her diabetes, or helping the Martinez family find affordable asthma medication for their 6-year-old. 3 years passed faster than I thought possible. The clinic grew from a startup dream into a genuine community resource. We'd hired 2 additional nurses and a part-time physician assistant. Quinn had developed a pediatric care protocol that other community health centers started adopting. One spring morning, I was updating patient charts when Quinn appeared in my office doorway with coffee and her serious expression. We need to talk about expansion, she said, settling into the chair across from my desk. More exam rooms? Different kind of expansion. Quinn's cheeks were pink, the way they got when she was nervous about something important. Ivy, I love what we've built here. The clinic, our life together, all of it. I sense a but coming. Not a but, more like a what if. Quinn reached into her pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. My heart stopped beating entirely. What if we made it official? What if we promised each other forever? Not just in private, but legally, publicly, completely. She opened the box, revealing 2 matching silver bands, each engraved with a tiny medical cross and the words Forever Hearts. Quinn Smith, are you proposing to me in my office? I figured this place represents everything we've built together. Our partnership, our love, our commitment to something bigger than ourselves. I looked at the rings, at Quinn's hopeful face, at the clinic bustling with activity outside my office door. Everything we'd created together, from that first night in the cabin to this moment, had been building toward this question. Yes, I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. Yes to everything. Yes to forever. Quinn slipped the ring onto my finger, and I did the same for her. The silver was warm, solid, real. Mrs. Edwards Smith? I like the sound of that. 6 months later, we held our wedding ceremony in the clinic's garden space, surrounded by colleagues, patients who'd become friends, and Quinn's family, who'd flown in from Michigan. Her parents had needed time to adjust to the reality of their daughter's life, but seeing Quinn's happiness, seeing what we'd built together, had overcome their initial resistance. Dr. Marcus Perry, who'd become one of our strongest supporters once he realized the clinic's mission, performed the ceremony. Quinn wore a simple white dress that made her blue eyes luminous, while I opted for a navy suit that Quinn had helped me pick out. "I, Quinn, take you, Ivy, to be my wife, my partner, my best friend," Quinn said, her voice carrying across the small garden. "I promise to support your dreams, laugh at your terrible jokes, and remind you to eat during double shifts. I, Ivy, take you, Quinn, to be my wife, my partner, my greatest adventure," I replied, meaning every word. "I promise to listen when you're right, argue when you're wrong, and love you through everything in between." When we kissed as newly married wives, our community cheered around us. Later, during our first dance to a jazz standard Quinn had insisted on, I looked around at the clinic that had brought us together, at the life we'd built from nothing. "Any regrets, Dr. Edward Smith?" Quinn asked, spinning me slightly. "Only that it took a blizzard and a mysterious bank deposit to find you. Best vacation planning ever." As we danced under string lights in our clinic's garden, patients and colleagues celebrating around us, I thought about the journey that had brought us here. From that desperate bus ride to Yellowstone to this perfect moment, every twist and turn had led to Quinn. "I love you, Mrs. Edward Smith." "I love you too, Dr. Edward Smith. Forever and always." The dance ended, but the music continued, and Quinn and I stayed on the floor, holding each other as our community celebrated around us. We'd built something beautiful together, something lasting. And this was just the beginning. This story is a reminder that life's most beautiful destinations aren't on any map. True love and purpose are found when we embrace the unexpected and build a future with courage. Don't be afraid to take that first unplanned step. For more stories of love and new beginnings, subscribe to my channel, where brand new episodes are uploaded every day.